All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day sitting.
Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 5. In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the second reading of the Barbados Optional Savings Bonds Plus offer to the public, Bill 2022.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning to commence this debate at a very critical time, certainly in the nature of the country. And having done a series of these presentations before, sir, it is becoming, I don't want to say rudimentary, but in the context of what we faced, certainly in the last 2 years, deliberately so because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Barbados, like most countries, all countries in the world, sir, have had significant challenges responding, first and foremost, to the pandemic itself, dealing with the social fallout, as well as the economic fallout in relation to the pandemic. And obviously, sir, with such extraordinary shocks, it means that government's ability to finance existing programs and continue to even do more requires, sir, a level of financing that was quite extraordinary. And therefore, I want to take a few minutes this morning just to give, again, very clearly, sir, the backdrop within which we've been operating, certainly in the last 4 years, and what we have done and what we are continuing to do to make sure, sir, that ordinary Barbadians in this country, in spite of the clear challenges that the country has faced, that we've been able to continue to provide, sir, under extraordinary pressure and circumstance, both within from a macroeconomic perspective, but certainly, sir, felt very firmly within every single household in this country, and the extent to which that has spilled over into the business community is important to understand. And that how we have been able to keep Barbados stable has been in part, sir, due to the fact that we've had to find resources under extreme circumstances extremely quickly, sir, in order to, as I said, sir, to be able to maintain the social stability of this country. Now, you would recall, sir, in July of 2020, we came to this chamber to introduce a different version of BOSS and the Barbados Optional Savings Scheme, as it is called. We introduced a specific piece of legislation, sir. Sunset legislation is the term, where for 18 months, we found a very creative way of using some fiscal space, finding fiscal space, creating fiscal space, in order to help drive some of the capital works programs, and again, sir, to help finance the program for government over the last 2 years. Very quickly, as you recall, sir, the economy shrunk by $2 billion approximately in 2020. The government's revenue, sir, as a result of that reduction in economic activity, reduced by almost $600 million. And therefore, in those circumstances, we did not shy away from the provision of the public services that we had committed to. But as you recall, sir, we even had to do more with respect to the response specifically to COVID-19. And we've had to find ways, sir, of using all types of the resources available to us to be able to finance our way through this. That particular initiative, sir, with the BOSS bonds were directed within the context of how we use the payroll system within the context of the public sector in order to generate approximately $100 million, sir, over the 18 months of fiscal space to be able to help drive some extra capital works, support the COVID-19 vaccine, the pandemic response, in order to get ourselves through that extremely difficult period when the world had pretty much paused. The airplanes were no longer flying, sir, and therefore, as a result, the Barbadians, I think, for the first time got a true understanding as to what the connections, the true connections, sir, between when an airplane lands at the airport and what happens within the rest of the economy, and what that would mean, sir, with respect to economic activity. So what that initial program, sir, was intended to do, as I said, our target was to create 100 million approximately in fiscal space, using, sir, funds that were related in a sense, sir, to the wages and salaries of public servants to drive capital programs. You would recall, sir, at the time, that because in the private sector, again, because of the cessation of travel, sir, we had a situation where 32,000 persons, sir, ultimately made claims to the National Insurance Scheme for unemployment benefits. And therefore, in the context of burden sharing, we felt that it was important to be able to find a creative way for government to create fiscal space without increasing taxation, without doing anything that was out of the ordinary, in a sense, to help share the burden, sir, with respect to what was happening. So we had a situation, sir, where the majority, if not all of the public sector, were at work in different ways. And you know, sir, we started to do remote work and a whole kinds of different things. But people in the private sector, sir, became unemployed, and therefore we felt that the ability to share the burden as best we can to be able to help respond to that significant downturn in the economy, we felt it was important to introduce the BOSS scheme to be able to help, in a sense, sir, drive as much economic activity given what we had seen, which was completely, sir, unprecedented. There were, as you know, sir, prior to us coming to office, there were all kinds of talk about you got to send home 10,000 public servants or whatever the number was, and all these kinds of numbers from persons that still continue to write in the papers today, sir, and around on social media. But we took a different approach with respect to not just the economic reality of the country, but certainly, sir, the social responsibility in the country. Because listening to those commentators, sir, if before we came to office, though, that was the prescription then you can imagine, sir, if they had 2 billion less in activity, if they had 6 million less in revenue, what the prescription that they would have put to the country at that point, I would imagine, sir, it would have been pure pandemonium, and not pandemonium that was at Botanical Gardens a few weeks ago, but it would be pure pandemonium, sir, in this country, given the nature of the prescription that these commentators tend to say that they would pursue. But this Barbados party government, sir, took a very different approach, recognizing that, yes, we were under extreme circumstances and we need to do something creative in order to make sure that we can respond, to maintain the social fabric of this country, sir, and to ensure that we could maintain the employment within the context of the public service as it was. We allowed people to work from home, come in the office, all kinds of flexible things in order to make sure, sir, that we can get this country through. And as you know, sir, it was a Herculean effort. And that culminated, sir, and there'll be something before the chamber a little later on that. But the reality is a lot of people dug deep within the context of the public service to be able to continue to maintain as best they could the provision of services to the public. A public, sir, as I indicated, that significantly severely impacted by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, extraordinary uncertainty both financially, mentally, socially, sir, causing stress upon stress within families, communities in this country, sir, and therefore we felt it was important that we maintain a measure of stability within the context of the social fabric of this country. And so we created the BOSS scheme, which effectively, sir, meant that officers within the context of the public service, you recall, sir, it was only, we went through an exercise where we discussed with the staff, their representatives within the union movement to explain that for persons who were earning above 36,000, that they would be the ones who can participate in this program by allowing us to be able to issue a part of their remuneration in bonds in order to ensure that we could use that cash, sir, to be able to drive the Capital Works program. And that particular exercise, sir, and as you know, sir, it was optional. It was never a mandatory thing. And for us, they were the public servants, all of us who participated for those 18 months starting July of 2020, sir, and as you know, sir, the program finished in December of 2021. Each month, you had, and there was a choice at the beginning, rare thing, but at any point in time, sir, people could either opt in or opt out with respect to their participation within that. And I must say, sir, that we've had a very good success with respect to not just the administration of the program, but certainly the participation. Now, as you would appreciate, sir, during the discussions and the discourse at the time, persons were quite concerned because, as you would appreciate, sir, if you're the teacher in the household and your husband or wife, sir, working in the private sector lost their job, then obviously your income now is even more critical at that point in time. And therefore, persons chose on the basis of their circumstance how they would participate in the program at the time, and therefore it allowed us an opportunity where if I, sir, was in such a circumstance where my household income had fallen because others in the house were no longer working because of the onset of COVID-19, I had the opportunity then, sir, to sell that bond, maintain my cash position in terms of payment from government on a monthly basis, sell that bond on to somebody in the private sector to be able to help government with respect to the cash transfer. And we did so, sir, in a way that I think was quite innovative. It worked seamlessly for the most part, up to coming on to the end. Obviously, there are always people who were wanting to purchase more, but we stayed within the realms of that. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information with you, sir, and the public this morning, just to indicate what we did exactly on the bus and what we're contemplating to do now with respect to this Boss Plus, because at the end, sir, of December of 2021, the government of Barbados issued a total of 83,815,147, sir, in bonds. So we were aiming for 100 million. We issued successfully, sir, 83,815,147. So a successful program, sir, by any stretch of the imagination, allowing us to be able to deal with some extraordinary capital works, which I'm sure the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, who had the responsibility for executing those programs, may perhaps bring the Chamber up to speed in terms of some of the work that was done within that respect. But it allowed us, sir, to be able to help finance, as I said, government's response to try to keep as much construction and people working, sir, as you would appreciate, as much construction activity that the government could do within the context of this specific intervention. And this has nothing to do with the existing capital budget that we were executing. This was to ensure that we could augment and respond to that. And therefore, these 83 millions that were issued help us to be able to finance our even further aggressive capital works program during that particular point in time. But at the end of December, sir, 21 million, or 25% of that, sir, still held by government employees. And therefore, today, as we speak, that remains the case. Let's say today remains the case. Chances are, sir, if you held the bonds up until December, you will continue to hold as I certainly have been able to do. And effectively, sir, the rest of the composition, I'm just going to share a little bit of information with you in the chamber to illustrate the interest of Barbadians. So what I'm saying to you, sir, is that of that 21 million held by public servants, 25%. So it means clearly, sir, 75% is held by ordinary Barbadians or other institutions, which I'm just going to go through and list for the benefit of the chamber to indicate that credit unions, sir, at the end of December, 18.6 million, 22%. And they thank the credit union movement for stepping up and helping for their members initially, sir, as they were doing, because if I was a member of the credit union, as I indicated, sir, and I wanted to sell my specific bond because of my circumstance, then I could go to my credit union and say, well, buy this bond from me, and that is what many of them did, many persons did, in order to be able to do that. Pensioners, sir, $9.4 million, 11% of the holdings. Pension schemes, 8.8, sir, approximately 11%. Individuals, 8.6%, sir, or 10% of the holdings. Government agencies, sir, 4 million, 5%. Insurance companies, sir, 3.58 million, 4%. Ordinary companies, sir, 2.738 million, 3%. Trust companies, 2.15 million, or 3%. Trustees of trust companies, sir, 1.28 million, or 2%. Then you have mutual funds, estates or legacies, institutions, financial institutions, all just around $1 million, sir, or 1%. And therefore, we had a wide, sir, cross-section of individuals in their own right, pensioners, sir, people who clearly retired, pension schemes, credit unions, sir, trust companies, ordinary companies in this country participating in that. And I thank them, sir, because it was important that we were able to do that. So any notion, sir, and discussion about whether things were whether the government was printing money or the central bank was printing money, all this kind of thing, sir. The truth is, sir, as everybody knows, or ought to know, and to be quite honest and upfront, the Central Bank of Barbados, sir, is the fiscal agent for government. Fiscal agent means, sir, that is the government's banker, in the sense, and therefore intermediates in the market to facilitate the movement of monies to and from either the public to the government, or from the government to the public, sir, with respect to the administration of debt. That is just how things are. And therefore, the central bank acted, sir, almost as a clearinghouse, if you like, sir, with respect to being able to help us execute this specific program at a very important time. So when people talk about the central bank was printing money and all these kinds of things, sir, it is not just disingenuous, it is a complete falsehood, sir, in the context of the intention with respect to the program. And as you know, sir, this exercise in of itself required us to engage the public servants and their representatives, because as you know, sir, the Protection of Wages Act has its limitations within which we could do certain things. We met, we gained their consent, we issued a specific piece of legislation, which was sunset, that facilitated us being able to execute BOSS. And therefore, as we have done this specific program, we recognize, because at the time, sir, at that time, given where we were within the context of the cycle of the support that we were planning to do in the program, it was important that the way that we created this debt and utilized the existing fiscal space, or to create the fiscal space that we had, it was not appropriate at the time to have a full offer to the public in the way that people were asking at the time, because there was tremendous interest, and therefore we found that innovative way to ensure that we created a space within the context of the fiscal circumstance to ensure that we could do this enhanced capital works program without being able to change the nature of the fiscal situation. Of course, it is debt. These are bonds. They have to be paid. And that continues to be the case as any other instrument. And therefore, we have moved to a stage now, sir, where because we want now because of the extraordinary set of circumstances that continues to face the country, and for a number of reasons which I will articulate, sir, we have now moved to a stage where now the offer of this type of initiative to the public now becomes necessary to help us now move forward with respect to bringing the economy out from where it is at. Let me remind the country through you, sir. Today is August, almost 4 years ago, sir. I stood somewhere over there, I can't remember, somewhere over there, sir, and led in 2018, sir, and it was right there. And I did the debate that ushered in, sir, the debt restructuring. And you would recall, sir, as part of the debt restructuring, we set about looking at a few things in terms of right-sizing the fiscal circumstance based on what the position was then. And as you know, sir, the position was not, it wasn't a nice position that we came in and found, sir, because as you know, sir, a lot of us refused to move on the South Coast for a long period of time, a long period of time. But we came in and we sorted that out. And I'm going to speak to a few things here during this presentation, because it is important that people appreciate that the way that government has acted with respect to the management of the public finances, and yes, there are some issues that still have to be resolved, which we are resolving, but what the government has done and brought about not just better management of the public finances, there are still some legacy systems that are being worked through which have to be sorted, and we all acknowledge that from the very beginning. The reality is, sir, that not just prior to COVID, but during COVID, the government has been able, through the way that it has been financing its operations, been able to respond, sir, for the most part, to the issues, the critical issues that were confronting the country. And I want to remind Barbadians that prior to us assuming office a few years ago, the government's ability, sir, the government's ability to respond was almost completely compromised. And therefore, when I stood over there, sir, and I did the debt restructuring legislation, sir, which this Parliament passed completely, sir, to allow us to stabilize effectively, sir, the country to those conditions at the time. You would recall, sir, that as part of that, there was a 4-year moratorium, sir, on the repayment of the principal part, or what we call, sir, officially the amortization of the principal, the payback of the principal. So for the last 4 years, sir, based on the debt restructuring, we have been paying interest only on the restructured debt, which was designed specifically, sir, to help us ensure then that we could respond to the things that we know that we needed to do, creating that space, as we like to say, sir, with respect to the haircut and the both in part in some principle and interest for the most part, to allow us to be able to get through. That is how we were able, sir, in a large part, to be able to fix the issues that we found on the South Coast, sir, to purchase the buses for the transport board, sir, to purchase the garbage truck, sir, to fix roads, to do the things that were humbugging Barbadians for a long time, sir. We were able to do all of that, sir, within the context of the framework that we did right here in this Parliament, sir, in 2018. That was September. The debt restructuring took effect, sir, October 1st of 2018. And as I said to you, sir, a 4-year grace period. And if anyone is listening, the 4-year grace period, sir, comes to an end September 30th of 2022, just a few weeks away. So we knew and we understood very clearly, sir, that we, at some point, and based on how our initial projections for the program, we knew we would not require domestic financing in the way that we had anticipated. But because COVID came along, sir, it caused a number of things to happen. We had a certain amount programming from support from multilateral, sir, that had to be augmented because, as you appreciate, sir, if the economy contracts by $2 billion, you lose $600 million in revenue, sir. You still have to expand and expenditure to respond to the conditions. Then luckily, we were able to draw on the work that we were able to conclude prior to COVID, that track record to help us to draw down more resources. But then we had to introduce the boss as a mechanism to help us get through the circumstance. So now that we have to commence, and least it be said so that anybody may believe that it's some surprise. It's not a surprise. We know that come October 1st, we have to now start repaying the principal part of the debt whilst we still continue to do what we are doing. And therefore, as part of how we are able to move forward, sir, and to help drive the recovery, and that's why we've been focused, sir, certainly even in spite of COVID, in trying to get the economy back fully functional as quickly as possible, that we would be able to do so in a way that still allows us, sir, to continue the downward trajectory with respect to debt overall, but recognizing, sir, that after the last 2 years of extraordinary difficulties, to be quite honest, sir, both in the households, in the business community, for government, the international community, sir, that we now have to reorient our minds, sir, with respect to how Barbadians, having gone through certainly the last 2 years of trying to I don't want to say, but we had to hold each other's hands, sir, to make sure that nobody effectively was left behind. And therefore, as we transition now away from that COVID posture into what will Barbadians do today to help drive the recovery, to help us to be able to continue the good work that many public servants certainly have done over the course of the last 2 years in particular, in extraordinary circumstances, because you would have appreciated, sir, the pressure that certain departments would have been under, namely the national insurance, by way of the payment of national unemployment contributions, because you would appreciate, sir, that 32,000 people suddenly thrown into this thing, the amount of pressure that would have created on them, and they responded admirably, sir. Equally, sir, within the context of the welfare department, in terms of people reaching out to the welfare department, which all of us in this chamber would be all too aware and familiar with, sir, that at one point the welfare department was getting up to 13,000 increase when the month come. So you would appreciate, sir, that extraordinary set of, and it was not easy, and I know that a lot of persons during the particular circumstance felt the squeeze, but you would appreciate, sir, that the difficulty of just the sheer numbers to be able to respond, it was just completely extraordinary. And therefore, it's something that I hope we will never, ever, 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 sir, have to relive at any point in any of our lives. But I want to say that in spite of those difficulties, we were still able to respond to a majority of persons in a reasonable time given the circumstance, and therefore it is something that we ought to be proud of as a country. And so we, sir, as we reach this particular stage now, mobilizing domestic resources and getting them back into the normal mix of things is going to be important. You will recall, sir, that the boss bonds, as we did then, sir, specifically for public servants, we protected those bonds from being restructured. And I raise this point here, sir, because it's important to remind the country, sir, that when we came to office, and you recall, sir, because everything is funny, sir, how in life things are so connected. It's extraordinary. Because you recall, sir, when we came to office, let me just go back a bit, sir. Prior to us coming to office, let me put it this way. Prior to us coming to office, Mr. Speaker, you would recall when, under the last government and the last central bank leadership, the minimum deposit rate, sir, was reduced from 2.25% for ordinary Barbadians' deposits in the banking system, sir, to 0.01%, sir, as they are now. And when that happened, sir, you would recall that the government of the day issued some savings bonds, you would recall, sir, almost like the fox with the grapes. So it's almost like something to tempt you, because not that there's anything wrong with savings bonds, and I want to make it clear to the public, there's nothing wrong with savings bonds. But you don't take away the ability for people to earn the normal interest, if you like, sir, within the context of the banking system, and then say, oh, look me here. There's something nice and shiny, sir, to attract people. There was something completely disingenuous, sir, about that action. We took umbrage to it, sir, because you could clearly see what it was. And I want to take the opportunity, sir, just to remind the public, sir, that we took that so seriously because we felt as if, sir, those persons were being taken advantage of. And one of the things that this government has tried to make sure that it does things as fairly as possible. And you would recall, sir, that during that very debt restructuring in 2018, we said specifically that we felt so aggrieved that those persons were effectively taken advantage of, and I'll explain why. Because we decided that we will ring-fence those savings bonds that were issued in 2015, all the way down from the 1st of June to 2015, sir, all the way down to the 6th of February of 2017, those savings bonds, okay, that were issued. We ring-fenced those from the debt restructuring because we felt that the last government had pretty much, sir, taken advantage of those people. Now, over those series, sir, and there were 10. There were 10 series, sir, that were issued as a result of that, all totaling some $129 million, sir. So between June of 2015 and February of 2017, sir, the last government issued $129,620,000 worth of savings bonds to the public. Now, remember I told you, sir, when we came to office, the sewage was flowing down the South Coast for almost 3 years. For almost 3 years. So having removed the interest abilities, the interest earning ability with the minimum deposit, sir, the last government took this money from people, sir, and as you know, sir, there wasn't a bus, there wasn't a garbage truck, sir. The sewage was flowing down on the South Coast. And therefore, we took a strategic decision, sir, that we would not have those savings bonds, those 129 million, sir, worth of savings bonds, be subject to the restructuring because of the dastardly nature in which they were put on the public. Because any government that takes money from people, sir, I believe fundamentally people must be able to see, feel, even if you don't agree with the decisions, you must still see and feel and experience what your government is doing for you and on your behalf. And therefore, we took a strategic decision, sir, to not have those bonds be subject to the restructuring in the way that the others were. And I want to remind the public that normal savings bonds, sir, have a 5-year maturity. And you would recall, sir, that, as I said, 1st of June was the first piece. It was 10 million. So you can imagine, sir, that on the 1st of June of 2015, what's 5 years from then, sir? Right in the middle of the pandemic, sir, that we had to turn around, sir, and find creative ways to be able to keep Barbadians afloat, help finance our way through, sir, a very extraordinary time. And that $129 million, sir, that was issued between, as I said, June of 2015 and February of 2017. At the end of June of this year, sir, Barbadians have only redeemed 100 million, approximately, of those bonds. So there's 29 million, sir, that is left to be paid, which means that there are persons out there with either 2015, with actually all of the series. All of the series. There are persons out there still holding those bonds that are issued, that they can redeem them at any time, just for clarity, that they can redeem them at any time in order from the government for them to be repaid. But what I want to make the point, sir, is that in spite of everything that we were doing, sir, those persons who took up those bonds received to date $100 million in redemption for really and truly, as I said, sir, the circumstance was something that we felt, sir, was quite egregious because there was nothing tangible that those people could see having put their monies into this thing. And so therefore, when we come to the public now, sir, and I say this unapologetically because this government, sir, this government has responded to every single challenge that has confronted this nation since we took office in May of 2018, sir. And I do not believe that there's a Barbadian alive today who is honest with themselves and will be honest with their children and their families, sir, that could say that this government, sir, has not lived up to its promise by being able to fix and deal with the very critical issues that continues to face this country. And therefore, as we move forward now, I want to ask Barbadians that as we move to this next phase with respect to coming out of the pandemic, recognizing, sir, that we still have quite a large amount of deposits within the financial sector. Those deposits, sir, earning 0.01%, sir. And mind you, even though you're getting 0.01%, sir, you ain't getting nothing every month or every quarter. Fees being applied to your deposits. So really and truly, sir, you ain't really getting nothing by keeping your money there. And whilst a lot has been said about who printing money and who ain't printing money and all of these kinds of things, Barbadians today, sir, today, in spite of whatever partisan color they may have, the one thing that is for sure is that, one, we have repaid these persons that the last administration took their monies and did not provide any meaningful public services for. This government has responded to all of the challenges that certainly has confronted this country. Things are still in progress with respect to airing out some of them. But as challenge after challenge after challenge confronts us, we are not going to shirk from the work, sir. We will continue to work diligently as quickly as we can to bring about meaningful responses to all kinds of things, sir, whether it is water, and I know that various members in here can speak to a lot of things within the context of their constituencies, and something that each of us as members of parliament, there are good things, and there are things that are not so good in the context that they're still unresolved. But I believe in my heart of hearts, sir, that as we come here in this chamber to speak on behalf of our constituents, that people genuinely, sir, I think can appreciate that this government has worked hard, sir, under extraordinary circumstance, and that it has been able to keep Barbados afloat, be responsible with respect to what we have been able to deliver compared to what we had seen before. Because, sir, I don't ever feel good thinking about these things. But had COVID come, sir, in 2018, without the mandate that we had and the ability for us to do what we had to do, sir, I can tell you that with the sewage flowing, the garbage issues, the water problems all across this country, sir, I don't know genuinely where Barbados would have been. And therefore, whilst we know that we still have some work to do to fix a number of issues, COVID has been a significant disruptor, but I believe that we still have been able to do what we had to do in an extraordinary circumstance, sir. And therefore, as we can move out this post, and I say post-COVID because, sir, you know, this thing is lingering, but we have to treat it, sir, like it is post-COVID. And therefore, we have to get on with the business, sir, in this country of moving Barbados forward. And therefore, I say to Barbadians that as you consider your options, because at the end of the day, sir, it's the Barbados Savings Optional Savings Scheme for all, BOSS Plus as we call it, sir, that as you consider your options for where you put your money, that part of the offering with respect to what the government is putting to you today and what you have seen with respect to our track record to date, sir, you must ask yourself whether, and the truth is, sir, you know, the last 4 years fly fast. Because, you know, when we did this thing and we said, well, the grace period is 4 years and we can think and we can be all right. The truth is, sir, the last 4 years, it flew like that. To the extent that, as you know, sir, and you know that I just check these things very regularly, so I must say to people that you know that the original boss, does pay in June and July. And I check my accounts every month, as I should, sir, because I need to know. I need to know where I stand. Where I stand. And I say so jokingly, but yet seriously, sir, because it's something that from a financial perspective, if you don't pay close attention to things, sir, things can get away from you. But I say this in all honesty, that last month, because, sir, as you know, we issue the bonds every month, monthly. There were 18 strips. Last month, I saw on July, I think it was 25th, I think it was, 18 pieces of interest, sir, into my account. And I added up, make sure that it's right, because I know that the officials at the central bank and the debt unit and everybody can do it right. I still added up to make sure that I know that I receive what I'm supposed to receive. I don't make that kind of sport, sir. I just check. I just check.
And you're the finance man, sir.
I just check, sir. But I say this to Barbadians in all sincerity. We have been faithful, sir, to honoring our commitments in spite of the challenges. And yes, there are a few pockets of things that need to be resolved. But in the main, sir, 99%, we have done what we said we will do. And if there are anomalies, we continue to get the agencies to fix those anomalies, which sometimes, sir, is some of these systems from an administrative perspective could be a bit cumbersome. We are working as best as we can to have them streamlined as quickly as we can with all the challenges that we are facing. But I say to people, as I check, I make sure that as within the context of the systems, we check, sir, to make sure that as we plan our expenditure, we look at the revenue, sir, we look at the financing gap, and we say, okay, good, this is the right time to be able to do this, so as to engineer the recovery. Because with the best will in the world, sir, I would like the war to stop tomorrow. I would like the global supply chain to level out tomorrow. I would like that certainly oil prices will come down tomorrow, sir. At the end of the day, I don't have control of those things, but I know that the things that we do here in Barbados today, tomorrow, and the next day, sir, those are the things that we have control over. And therefore, as we move forward now, Barbadians have in their own hands the opportunity, sir, to help drive a lot of the recovery and who can participate fully in that. And therefore, as I ask Barbadians, what would you do, sir, with that $50, $100, $1,000, 100,000, whatever it is that you may have in your bank right now, sir? In your bank account, not your bank account, not your bank, in your bank account. Subject to 0.01% and fees and a whole set of headache. Knowing that what the government is offering today, sir, with respect to this BOSS Plus to the public, and the public means public servants too. Just for the benefit, it means public servants too. So whilst it was done administratively from the payroll side internally, now it has to be managed in a different way. What would you do, sir, on a monthly basis when the auctions are put out there, sir, with respect to being able to subscribe to this thing? Because what the government is offering you today is 450 times, sir, what you will get in a commercial bank. And therefore, in helping to rebuild this country, and here's the reality, as I said, sir, after the 4-year grace period, we knew that obviously having to start to repay principal and having to go back into these traditional markets with respect to financing, then obviously we've had to get monies from international institutions, and therefore, why would it make sense only to go out to the international market, sir, or to the regional market, and not have an opportunity to say to Barbadians that this is how you too, sir, is how you too can contribute to the recovery? Because here's the thing, sir. Throughout this extraordinary set of circumstances, the confidence, not just from international institutions, but certainly the confidence with respect to the international creditors still remain very, very, very strong and very high confidence in Barbados. And therefore, if there are people who are outside of Barbados that still have confidence in what we are doing and in the program that we have embarked on, we've had to do some bobbing and weaving, sir, because of COVID-19. But as I said, sir, we now have to stand up, as I used to say, sir, as big men and women now after this pandemic, and face it, sir, fix it, as former member for St. Peter used to say, and let us get on, sir, with the business, sir, with the business of right-sizing Barbados in this post-pandemic era. And therefore, I say to Barbadians, this is yet but one way in which an ordinary Barbadian can help drive a lot of the recovery efforts in Barbados by helping the government to continue to finance its programs. I think we have done a very, very good job, sir, with respect to, as I said, responding to a myriad of challenges. And the truth is, sir, we've come to this point, sir, because as you know, we had the COVID pandemic, we had the ash fall last year, sir, and then we had that lightning, that freak storm, sir, that created quite a bit of havoc before Hurricane Elsa came, sir, all in the last year. And as you know, sir, last summer wasn't easy because that Delta variant, sir, had we lick up. And the truth is, equally, last year, we had to also recapitalize, sir, start the recapitalization of the unemployment fund, because as you know, sir, with the unemployment from 2020, all those people had to get the unemployment benefits, and government had to do some is that you're playing dominoes, sir. You had to shuffle, pay them some of their existing bonds that they had to give them some cash to lend the unemployment fund, because as I remind the chamber again, the unemployment fund typically would take in about 50-odd million a year, pay out 38, depending on 35 or somewhere around there, sir. But you would imagine that is in a normal set of circumstances where you're getting a normal set of unemployment claims. But when you got 32,000, sir, in a few weeks, on top of whatever the normal flow would be, then you would appreciate that the extraordinary cash requirement for the NAS, so we had to start to do that last year as well. So it was not a comfortable time, sir, financing things, because shock after shock after shock after shock, government had to respond. And when I say to people that I hope that we could get 2 or 3 years, sir, of just relative calm, I mean it sincerely, because shock after shock after shock after shock, sir, means that you have to constantly be recalibrating, deciding, well, I can't do this now, as you know, sir, in your household. You tell your wife or your husband, sir, well, darling, I would like to do it, but you got to hold on. And therefore, government has had to make those decisions as well, whilst trying to make sure that we can ease, sir, the immediate stressors for people. And as you can see this year, with inflation and food prices and fuel prices and all of these pressures that are taking place with respect to the global uncertainty, the government continues, sir, throughout all of that, to still maintain, sir, a very good and standard of public services, provision of public services. It is something that we cannot at all take for granted, because it is really an extraordinary effort to be able to continue to do that whilst making sure that we do not leave anybody behind. So with those shocks, sir, commodity prices rising, all of these things, inflation rising, the opportunity now, sir, is for how do we mobilize domestic resources. And I'm saying this in the context, yes, of government, but I want to also say to business people and the Barbadian public that we have to find, we are working with organs within the context of the private sector, the stock exchange, to see too how we can get some of these cash resources into the private sector for expansion as well. Because we can't only rely, sir, on people from outside having confidence in here to come in to invest. That is important. But we also equally must invest in ourselves. And therefore, we are working to see how we can get as much of the domestic resources, not just for government's purposes, but equally, sir, for investment in private opportunities that will actually help to drive and create an environment for sustained growth. That requires not just for us to clean up our act, as we've been doing, sir, with respect to the accounts and all of these things, which, sir, is a little complicated, but doable. And there's a clear path to be able to do that. But the reality of the circumstances that we now have to find a very, very, very aggressive way, sir, of moving the monies from in the bank accounts from the financial sector into the real economy. Because the money is no good, sir, really sitting down in the bank. It really should be just turning over. So therefore, we're trying to create as much opportunities, not just for government investment, public investment, but obviously private investment. And that's why you have heard the Prime Minister say that if we are going to support any specific venture, there must be an opportunity for Barbadians to participate. And the central bank has been given a very, very, very clear directive, sir, that they must find, as we launch and move towards a digital payments framework from October, that the ability, sir, for ordinary Barbadians to just simply sign up, sir, and move some money from their bank account and purchase, whether it's a government bond, purchase stocks or shares or whatever it is, sir, in the private sector, that we have to find ways to be able to move money easily, quickly, such that all of the administrative costs and the burden and all of that stuff, sir, comes down, and then you will be able to get the appropriate information with respect to what is supporting that in the palm of your hand, sir, in order to help us to be able to help drive a lot of this. The truth is, sir, that in the past, the traditional system was that the brokers will be the ones who will decide, well, I can come and, if I'm a broker, sir, I will decide whether I will buy and then come and contact my clients and decide whether I feel my clients will be interested in these types of things. What we're saying to Barbadians is that we don't only want to rely on those people to make the market, but we have to now make sure that ordinary Barbadians, through the communications, not just from government, but certainly from the various stakeholders, that not that the brokers aren't important, they are. But the reality is we have to find ways now with the technology to make sure that every single person, sir, every single person, whether by text, by WhatsApp or whatever, sir, by app, whatever it is, that you can avail yourself of the information, because as you know, sir, in sometimes one of the negative things sometimes is that information isn't shared as widely as possible, and therefore only a few persons, sir, sometimes benefit, because, sir, you may know me, I know the member for Christchurch West, and we see a good thing, but then we don't tell the others that there's a good thing that we can all share in the benefit of. And therefore, we want to open up this entire space with respect to, as we go back into the domestic market for our financing, that we tweak how we make offers to the public with respect to government paper, and therefore allow ordinary Barbadians to be able to invest in the same way that, with respect to whether it is the investment in renewable energy, because there are some companies out there, sir, that are offering URI. I may not, sir, I may not have $20,000 to put up a system, but I could buy a panel, sir, for $500. And therefore, if I can invest and know that that panel is generating on a roof, it allows us then to do some innovative things to be able to crowdfund, if you like, sir, investment. I know that that panel on that roof there, sir, belongs to me because it is there. And therefore, as we break these things down, and I know the honourable member for St. James Central has started with the financial literacy, and we hope that that will go far and wide within each and every community in Barbados, sir, that we really now must make sure that we bring to the people these opportunities that would allow us to be able to mobilize as much resources as possible and to have a truly inclusive, sir, financial system where whether it's the coconut vendor, sir, or the barber, the hairdresser, sir, having a little money, and the same thing with what's happening with digitizing the rest of the financial architecture of the government, that people will be able not just to pay government, but government will pay you, and that the culture, sir, the culture that we want to create is that it will bring greater transparency, certainly, just because people would know about it. And when you know about it, sir, you will decide whether you can participate or not. It's straightforward. And that is something that we want to be able to usher. So Boss Plus, sir, is piggybacking in a sense, sir, on the original Boss, which, as I told you, sir, 83 million approximately was issued, 25 million held by public servants, not 25, not 21. 25%, but 21 million by still being held by public servants. January and July, sir, those payments are coming in to people who have us holding those bonds, sir. As I said, like me, when I checked, July 25th, all those persons would have received their interest payments up until that point. The original BOSS, though, sir, was 4 years. This version of BOSS is a five-year bond, akin to, as I said to you earlier, sir, the traditional savings bonds structure to allow us to be able to do that. Now, sir, 4.5% interest. It ain't bad, sir, considering what you will get, or yes, what is on offer within the context of the banking sector, and therefore it is something that I believe makes sense for anybody who may have a little spare change, and a little spare change, sir, but just mean a 50 here, 100 there, 1,000 here, or if you're other members in this space who may have a little more liquidity, might mean a little more with respect to them. A 5-year maturity, sir, and that is what we are aiming to do. Now, interest again will, sir, be paid semi-annually. It is February and August, sir. Let me just go here quickly to the schedule. Sorry. Five-year bonds are paid semi-annually. The intent is to be done in February and August. The usual, sir. Bonds will be tradable and negotiable. What is important, sir, as well, is that these will be not subject to taxation. The early redemption feature, sir, 24 months after the date of issue. So when you put in, sir, you'll get your money's back as early in full after 2 years, if you wish. But of course, it means you don't get the interest. So don't be So that shouldn't be surprised. So it shouldn't be surprising. Bonds can be traded in the secondary market, sir, to allow us to be able to get this done. So no withholding tax, sir, on interest earned. Stamp duty shall not be payable, sir, with respect to these bonds. Now, just to be clear, sir, whilst we are passing this bill today, if circumstances change, circumstances meaning that market conditions may change because if they've got too much demand or too little demand or whatever it is, sir, we'll change the terms on the basis demand and supply, sir, and we will monitor that to make sure then that we do that very carefully. And so at clause 10, it says obviously the minister may by order change the schedule, as you would appreciate that with each issuance and the size of the quantum, each issuance will be determined on the basis of what we do. Now, you would recall, sir, just very quickly, that under the fiscal framework in terms of what we have been able to do and with the midterm review and estimate, all of this is part of how we now move into this next phase with respect to either retapping the domestic market, the regional market, or the international market for financing. We appreciate that we have to do everything within our own power, individually and collectively, to get as much growth going in every sector of the economy. Because coming out of the last 2 years, sir, we have to move with haste to unclog, unblock, remove, sir, any hindrances, any blockages, anything, sir, in order to make sure we have a clear path. And if we can do that domestically, sir, working together, the government with the social partners, with individuals, with business people, and get a clear line of march, sir, then I am absolutely confident that we shall be able not just to, as we have done with all the other bonds that we ring-fence in 2018, but the existing bonds that we are paying with respect to the restructuring. We've had a tremendous amount of confidence placed in us, sir, by international institutions, which is quite extraordinary, and therefore it is time now, sir, as we put our money where our mouths are, effectively, sir, that I believe we have a very strong and robust track record with respect to what we have been able to do in the last 4 years in quite extraordinary set of circumstances, sir, that allows us to move with haste to be able to accelerate, sir, the recovery. One of the very important things, though, sir, and I want to indicate that was we continue, sir, internally with respect to the Ministry of Finance to work with the accounting profession to be able to bring a number of the state-owned enterprises and everybody up to date with respect to their accounts and the systems and all of that, sir. What is important, and because last there have been some commentary in relation to you can't trust the government with the numbers and this kind of thing, sir, I want to indicate to you, sir, to the public, that what the public of Barbados, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. It is important, sir, that we get this corrected. And we have worked on an iterative basis, sir, to respond to issues. Now, if it was at all possible that we could have done all of this in 2018 or 2019 or 2020, sir, we would have done so. It is no excuse, but what we have been able to deliver credibly, sir, to Barbadians over the last 4 years has been properly accounted for, not just by way of this Parliament. There will always be issues with respect to administration, which we work to wind down and to prevent. And therefore, from where I stand, sir, we have a series of interventions that we continue to make within the context of how we right-size the accounting within government and they're talking about central government as well as state-owned enterprises. We continue to build out capacity within that space, and therefore, I believe that had it not been for the intervention of COVID, where we had to divert our attention, sir, to purely ensuring that people can stay afloat. This is not an excuse in any way, sir, not an excuse, but our focus certainly over the last 2 years is that we've done what we said that we will do to respond to the people. The people of Barbados can see and feel the benefits of that. We will address the accounting issues, sir. We will address the accounting issues, but in addressing the accounting issues, let us not lose sight of the fact, sir, that over the last 4 years, but particularly in the last 2, this country has been truly tested. The government, on behalf of its people, sir, we have responded to the challenges. Not all of the challenges are yet complete, just like all of the accounting issues, sir, have not been completed. And therefore, as we continue to work with the public officials, with the various private entities that also have to deliver some of these issues, sir, that there are capacity constraints all around, but we will do the appropriate intervention, not just from a technological perspective, but training and the like, sir, to be able to bring a number of these things back into line. And therefore, as Barbadians contemplate what we are doing here, our programming with respect to how we respond in the main to keep the normal public policy trajectory. But we must recognize, sir, that at any point in time, your government must be capable of responding and rising to the challenges that the country faces. And I believe, sir, in my heart of heart, that we have been able to do that, do it credibly. We are not walking around looking for challenges, sir, to solve, because as I said, sir, I myself, after 4 years here, will love a couple of years, sir, where we can just have relative calm in order to help us to get beyond some of these niggling challenges, to wrestle them to the ground. But that has not been our luck, and therefore I continue to ask Barbadians their patience, because these issues are not no issues. We are dealing with the issues. I wish that they could have been done overnight, but we will continue to wrestle them down to the ground one by one, systematically, in order to ensure that the confidence that you repose in us as members of Parliament, that not just from a performance perspective in terms of earning your trust, but the appropriate regulatory requirements that are to be done are done, so that there's complete transparency and information being provided within the context of the financial situation, not just of government, but certainly of the various state-owned enterprises within the space. And so, sir, this bill I absolutely support, and I urge Barbadians to give very, very, very meaningful consideration to its passage, because come September, sir, as they become available, I want to urge Barbadians, no matter how small a contribution you can make. As we have all seen, sir, over the last 2 years, small contributions can have a significant impact, sir, on the lives of Barbadians. And therefore, it is that kind of spirit that no matter how small, sir, you can make a contribution to your country. And therefore, this is part of us being able to allow ordinary Barbadians to be able to, and business. So let me just to be clear, sir, it is open to everybody. It is open to everybody. But we want to make sure that as far as possible, as we said, sir, share the burden, share the bounty, and therefore, as we have all had our challenges over the last 2 years, this is an opportunity now, sir, for us to be able to bring as many people into the process, as many businesses into the process, investors into the process, to be able to help drive, sir, the recovery. And so, sir, I am happy to obviously support the bill. But I am happy that we are here today at this particular stage, not necessarily in the circumstances that we have seen certainly over the last 2 years, but knowing that we have done a very good job responding to people, and that it is now time, sir, for us to be able to muster the courage to be able, however small, to be able to make a meaningful contribution, sir, to the recovery of Barbados. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time. I am bless you.
Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Member St. Joseph.
beg to move that this House do stand suspended for a 5-minute break, so we would resume at, shall we say, 12 minutes to 12? That is an auspicious number, I suspect.
The question that this honourable chairman be suspended for 5 minutes. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chairman stands suspended for 5 minutes. This sitting is resumed. Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to enter into this debate. First, let me congratulate the member for Christchurch East Central, who led the debate and did a wonderful job in explaining to the people of Barbados not only what the experience of the original Boss Bond has been, but also what the expectation of the Boss Bond Plus is expected to be. And first, let me say I fully support this, and I believe with good reason. And let me see if I can explain why I give this unconditional support to this current matter before the House. First, let me say, Mr. Speaker, that this is a money management exercise. And it is unfortunate that many of our people don't fully appreciate and understand money management. Partly because all of these years, it was not financial literacy, as we now call it, was not appropriately taught in the school system. School system, maths, English, a foreign language, maybe the sciences, social science, no understanding of how to manage money. You know, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when I speak to my colleagues in the medical profession, excellent physicians, excellent surgeons, but cannot manage $10. Cannot manage $10. So they make lots of capital by virtue of their knowledge as a physician or surgeon, whatever it may be. Do not understand how to invest that money, to be able to take that $10 and make it $15, $20, or $2,500. Because they were never taught it. And their parents were never taught it. Half of the time, their parents are civil servants, people who work for a salary day in, day out, paid their bills, put money in the bank, and look at a bank balance and thought that they were doing well. But that is not how money management works, Mr. Speaker. And you, as a very learned attorney, understand better than the average person how money management works. We say your money must work for you. So what does that mean? That means building capital by your profession, spending, not too much, spending a little bit of that to make ends meet, not living ostentatiously, but living at a reasonable standard, and taking the vast majority of that and putting it to work for you. Now, I know for a fact that is not happening in Barbados. How do I know that that's a fact? If people were putting their money to work for them in Barbados, Mr. Speaker, there would not be $3.5 billion in the banking system in Barbados. Let me hear that again. Let me tell you that. There is 3.5 billion. 3,500,000 million dollars then. $3,500 million in the banking system in Barbados. And if people had understood financial management, understood financial literacy, that money would not be there. You know why that money would not be there, Mr. Speaker? Because the percentage return on that investment is less than 1%, 0.015%. So what does that mean? That means, Mr. Speaker, for every $10,000 that you have in the bank, and there are people that have $10,000 and more, for every $10,000 somebody has in the bank in Barbados today, after 12 months, after 365 days of that money sitting on there, you know how much money you can get? $15. $15 for $10,000. And then if they take out the fees, But you ain't getting none. You go on 9,900 or something now. Because the take out the fees and that money gone down, not gone up. So obviously, there is money there that can be invested. And what we are saying to the people of Barbados through this instrument called Boss Plus, which first started for civil servants, and the civil servants went in to the tune of millions of dollars and are benefiting and still benefiting. I was one of those beneficiaries, and I benefited significantly from it. In the same way that the civil servants were able to benefit, we are now saying to the people of Barbados, you get a chance to benefit. Don't wait for the $15 from the commercial banks. Take that same 10,000 and get 4.5%, not 0.15, 4.5. What does that mean? That means for the same $10,000, rather than waiting for $15 after a year, $450 when the year comes. And by the way, you're getting it every 6 months. So you get something like $225 and $225, so you get something in advance. That's what I'm talking about. That is simple financial management. Unfortunately, in our country, there are not a lot of investment vehicles. They're not. And that is sad. And I really hoped that when the Barbados Stock Exchange came on board, that it would have provided more investment vehicles. But investment vehicles in Barbados, small. The average person, what are they going to do? They're going to build on a little something on the house and try to rent out an apartment. Those that go a little higher say, okay, we do a little better than just putting on something in the house to rent out an apartment. We can buy a house and use that as a rental income and do that. Those that go a little higher say, okay, we gone past just a single house. We can do a 4-apartment block and we can do that. Those that go a little higher say, okay, we gone past that. We can buy some land. We can divide it into lots. We can either sell the lots or we can do a development as houses and we can invest that way. Those that go a little higher say, okay, we ain't going to do that. We're going to do a bigger development and we can have a condo complex. And we can sell some of those and we can rent some of those and that's the revenue that we can get. These are the kinds of investments that are available to people in Barbados who otherwise don't have a profession and who don't want to take the risk of having a business. Because business, even although it can be better, the risk and the management requirement is higher. Because property gives what you call passive income, whereas business is active income. Business means like a gas station, you actually got to be there. You actually got to be working with employees. You actually got to make sure the PAYE is done, the NAS is done, and then work the revenue after the losses, byproduct and all that. That's a business, that's an active investment. Property is passive investment. For somebody that has a job otherwise and wants to invest in something else. So this is a passive investment opportunity. Take that money out the bank. Buy some of these Boss Plus bonds and let not only you benefit better than you are doing now, but look at the other benefits to the country. And then like this money is being wasted. This money is being used on infrastructure so you could benefit. This money is being used on helping our brothers and sisters that suffered significantly from Hurricane Elsa and the freak storm. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to give you, I know I don't have a lot of time, but I want to give a short report. The Minister for Housing isn't, let me give a short report as the Senior Minister responsible. The response for Hurricane Elsa. The latest report that has come to me on Hurricane Elsa. So the repairs, there were 760 houses to be repaired and 740 houses to be rebuilt. A massive undertaking, never before seen in the history of this country. Of those, what we were able to do is say, some people, if you have the wherewithal, you just get materials and you do your repairs yourself. 213 people did that. The National Housing Corporation was able to provide repairs for them, and they were able to sort themselves out. Good for them. I'm sorry that more weren't able to do it. Of that then, that meant that we had to build or repair depending on the National Housing Corporation, the Rural Development Commission, or the Urban Development Commission. Of those, the total, structures that have been completed, repairs, 384 have been completed, repairs. Rebuilds, completed, 105, 330 are in progress for rebuilds, and 217 are still in progress for repairs. We still have another 140 repairs to be mobilized and 143 rebuilds. So it has not been perfect, but I want to draw your attention to what happened in Puerto Rico, Mr. Speaker. In Puerto Rico, when they had the hurricane there, you imagine, Mr. Speaker, 6, 7 years on, they're still working on repairs and rebuilds. They're still working on them. 6 years. And this is our 1 year, and we have completed almost half. And we're on track to get as many done as possible. Has it been perfect? By no stretch of the imagination. Have the National Housing Corporation, the Rural Development Commission, the Urban Development Commission, and the minister responsible for housing done their best, above and beyond their best? And they continue to do it. So we're going to continue. Funds have not been coming as fast as we would like. That's part of the problem. That's why we have this, Boss Plus, to help us. We also have the catastrophe fund. We will soon be coming back to be able to access that, to get funds to replenish, to get these things done. Get infrastructure done. Get people working again. You know, I heard yesterday that every cloud has a silver lining. But you know, I also heard every silver lining has a cloud. And that's the first time I had seen it from that side of it, but I do understand. And it brings me to the point of the growth that we've been seeing in this economy. I see that I only have a few more seconds left. The growth in this economy. For the first time in almost a decade, we are seeing double-digit growth in this country. 11.8% in the first 6 months. Well, I ain't gonna go as far as 50. Well, I know for a fact that there was no growth under the Democratic Party. I know it because I used to call them the no-growth government when I was sitting on that side. So I know that unlike them, we have brought growth back to this country. Double-digit growth back to this country. And the people of Barbados have to understand, led by tourism, but you know what, construction too. And I want to tell the people of Barbados, I want to thank the member for St. Michael South Central, who did a fantastic job in the planning department of this country, bringing legislation and putting them on even keel. I want to thank the members of the Department of Planning. They used to be called Town Planning. They're now called Planning and Development. I want to be clear. They're now called Planning and Development Department. Mr. Speaker, the Planning and Development Department, since January of 2022, have issued 1,000 building permissions in this country. 1,000 building permissions, Mr. Speaker, contributing significantly to that 11.8% growth that we are now seeing in this country. Putting Bajans back to work. Getting hardware stores to sell materials. Getting the construction transport system working to pull sand, to drop cement, to get blocks. So that this economy is moving. And we have to continue to keep it moving. We have to maintain it and sustain it. And we can sustain it through construction. We can sustain it through hotel construction. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, you know, Sam Lords is going to open real soon. Sam Lords is going to be 422 rooms. Sam Lords is going to first have 350 people employed, moving up to 1,000 people employed. And we have worked hard on getting Sam Lords to where it is. And I know certain members have been visiting Sam Lords without letting me know, but I understand, it's okay. But let me tell you, we have worked hard on getting Sam Lords going. And we're going to push, and I'm pushing hard to get that finished by December of this year, the year of our Lord. And once we get Sam Lords done, wants to get doing another, with the Prime Minister's blessings, we're hoping to get her to do another opening of another hotel called Indigo, which was where Caribbean was. Get that one going. Get construction firing on all cylinders, and sustain development in this country, and sustain employment in this country, and give people employment not for during the construction, but give people employment for after the construction. And this is what we need to do, and this is why we need people to get out there, take that money out, and invest it so that we can continue to build out this country. Let us build this country together, because together we stand and divided we fall. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I shall not detain the House very long, but I thought it necessary to intervene at this point to support the Barbados Optional Savings Bonds Plus offer to public Bill 2022. And I thought I needed to share a few thoughts and remind us of a few things, because at the end of the day, when I look at what is happening in this country, and when I compare it to what is happening across the globe, I come to the view that this government is taking care of Barbados, and this government is taking care of Barbadians. I say that, Mr. Speaker, very well aware that I speak as a politician, and I speak as a member of Parliament. I speak as a representative for the people of St. Peter. And I am aware, because I'm not that naive, I am aware that what I say will be taken as coming from a political perspective. It will not be seen as absolutely objective. But I believe that the facts speak almost for themselves. And I just want to remind us that first, as a government, while we are in the midst of a pandemic, we have never totally blamed the pandemic for what is going on in our country. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the reason why I, from time to time, come back to the pandemic is because as we move to the climax of celebrating St. Peter's Month and regathering, that Friday afternoon, the 28th day of February, was a leap year, so the 28th was the penultimate day of the month. It was at the renaming ceremony in Spitestown, when we renamed the road, what we used to call the Bypass Road, and we renamed it in honor of one of your predecessors, Sir Kenmore Nathaniel Wrightstone Husbands, Doc Husbands, and we renamed the highway after him. I remember as we gathered around the sign and started to chat, the Prime Minister making a statement to the Attorney General, asking him if he was ready to go down to Harrison's Point. And so the connection with me and Spitestown has always remained, because it was on that day, it appears to me, that the decision to construct Harrison's Point and the medical facility was made. And so we have a government that, in the face of a pandemic, because this is on the 28th of February, this is not the end of March, this is the 28th of February, we have a government that proactively makes a decision to spend money, to spend millions of dollars to make sure that whatever was coming, Barbados and Barbadians would be protected. We didn't do it having a lot of money. But this government is intent on doing good by and taking care of the people of this country. And so without a lot of resources, we constructed Harrison's Point. determined that we would do all we could to keep COVID out of our only hospital. You know, in New York, when their healthcare system was overrun by COVID cases, they were able to bring a hospital ship into the harbor and use the hospital ship. Small island states like Barbados don't have that luxury. Well, it used to be the HMBS, but the Leonard Banfield, I'm not sure how many critical care beds that can hold. I am told it can only hold enough beds for the crew that is on it. We don't have the luxury that some others have. But this government, in its astute stewardship of the people's money, decided that we had to look after the people. We had to look out for the health of the people, and so we had Harrison's Point. And we were able to maintain vital services so that our healthcare system did not fail. As a matter of fact, we did not get to the point of where many larger countries had gotten, where you couldn't get healthcare, where people were falling down in the street outside of a hospital because there was no more room in the hospital. We never got to the point where we ran out of ventilators. We never got to the point where we ran out of oxygen. Mr. Speaker, I, while a politician, believe that the facts are there. The facts speak to a reality that says to me, and I know it says to quite a number of persons, because the response of the public in January of this year says to me that people understand that in spite of and in face of the challenging times, this government has been a faithful steward of the funds of the people, the taxpayers of this country. We maintained health care. We maintained education. We did not pull back from education free at the point of delivery. We continued as a country to make sure that our young people, the young people of this nation, would be educated in spite of the circumstances. We were able to maintain our public security, and we know that public security all across the world is not judged by the absence of crime, because I do not know of a country where there is an absence of crime. I, as a Christian, know that in a perfect society, that which I refer to as the Garden of Eden, there was sin, there was wrongdoing. So there's no perfect society. But Barbados, by and large, was able to maintain law and order in spite of the circumstances. We were able, in the face of the shutdown of the tourism industry, effective shutdown of the industry, we were able to maintain a certain level of employment, both by public engagement, beautifying, being school monitors, working with the healthcare system. We were able to do that, Mr. Speaker, by using the funds of the people of this country, buttressed by lending from institutional, well, not institutional investors, but multilateral institutions. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that this government has a track record of the proper use of the funds of the people of this country. You know, we started the journey in the Lloyd Erskine 71st Center, and whenever I think about it, I'm still a bit amazed. We announced to the world that we were defaulting. That is not something that people like to hear at all. Investors don't like to hear that. But just a couple of hours after we made that announcement, the head of the International Monetary Fund issued a statement supporting Barbados. That was done because it was recognized that this country, led by this government, had a plan, had not just a plan, but a credible plan to keep Barbados afloat in the face of one of the most virulent challenges that would ever have confronted this country, particularly since independence. And so we were able, in spite of the challenges, to maintain our focus, to stay the course. And that is because this government takes care of Barbados. This government takes care of Barbadians. And so when the BOSS program was first introduced, it was introduced to do a number of things. It was introduced because government, on behalf of the people, needed to be able to keep this country going. The multilateral lenders have significant confidence in us, but we also believe that we have a responsibility to allow Barbadians, to allow ordinary people, to allow the people in Spiteston and Boscobel and Black Basin all through Mile and Quarter to have the opportunity to invest in the success of the country, to be partners in the success. You know, we speak, and as Minister of Labour, we speak sometimes to private sector business operators, private sector owners of businesses. And we say to them, one of the best ways of ensuring that your workers feel a part of your organization is to allow them a stake in the ownership of the organization. We say that all the time because it is a theory that has been proven to work. There is absolutely no reason, Mr. Speaker, why ordinary Barbadians, when we ask them to be participant in the ownership of the businesses where they work, why we should not also give them the opportunity to be participant in the development of the country that has given to them and to us all that we have. And that is the thinking, that is the philosophy behind how this government operates as it seeks to lead, as it seeks to look after, as it seeks to take care of Barbados and Barbadians. Boss bonds, Mr. Speaker, have an attractive rate of return. I'm not going to spend time on that. But just to say to the people of Barbados, like I say to the people of St. Peter, I say to the people of Barbados generally, we have a number of things to do. We have to maintain jobs. We have to maintain social services, education, public security, healthcare. These are things that we have to maintain. And we believe that the best way of maintaining these things is not to lean only on multilateral lenders, the World Banks and the IMFs and the IDBs of this world, but we believe that the people of this country, we know they have the interests of the country at heart. We know that some of them, quite a number of them, have savings in the bank not earning very much. And we believe that they can be participant in this venture. We believe that they can be participant in making sure that this country remains viable, that this country continues to move forward, and that we continue to take care of it and take care of the people who live here. We will continue, Mr. Speaker, as I close, to be proactive. Every time I hear in the news about Sri Lanka, every time I hear about Sri Lanka, I say to myself, why did they not do what Barbados did at the time that Barbados did it. I feel for the people. When you have to wait 12 hours in a line for petrol, when you go to the supermarket or to the shop and there's very little on the shelf, Barbados and this government has been proactive. We have done our default. We have restructured our debt. We are in the process of restructuring other institutions in this country. And we have already engaged Barbadians in this effort. Boss Plus is the second engagement in this particular context of engaging Barbadians. And I commend this Barbados Optional Savings Bonds Plus bill, not just to this chamber, but I commend this bill to the people of Barbados. Let us continue to work together to make sure that we have a viable country, that we continue to be the object of not just amazement, but that we can be a country that others can look at and see how to properly take care of the people of the country. This bill has my full support, and I ask Barbadians, wherever possible, those who have savings, those who have a little extra, I encourage all of them to be participant in this so that at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, we can continue to live in a country that does good by its people. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank honourable members for their contribution. All I can say, sir, in wrapping up this debate is that we have taken a clear position as a government, sir, that we must now treat whatever's ahead of us, sir, as post-pandemic. We will continue to be vigilant. We will continue to urge Barbadians to be safe, but very conscious and clear, sir, that we must now move forward with a different attitude with respect to how we are going to not just deal with each other, but how we're going to help each other, sir, to be able to lift ourselves out of this COVID slumber, if you may, sir. We've had 2 tough years where we've all had to make adjustments in our own personal and professional lives, sir, within our communities, within our business places, in government, the way that we've had to respond to the public, we've had to change. Some changes, sir, I hope certainly have been for the better. And I can only urge that as we have learned how to adapt, how to adjust, sir, and we had to do so in uncertain circumstances over the last 2 years, I ask Barbadians that as we move now to a different phase of this journey, that we must always be mindful that as a small country, as individuals, we must be as flexible, sir, as we need to be in order to confront the challenges that may arise. And certainly the world is not without its challenges. Rest assured that this government will continue, sir, not just from a fiscal perspective or macroeconomic perspective, but certainly with a very clear sense, sir, that the social stability of this country is absolutely, absolutely paramount. And therefore, as we have had to be flexible with respect to how we rejig the public finances, flexible in terms of when we do things and how we do things, and we do things sometimes very, 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 very quickly. Other times, sir, we had to pull back and do things in a very clear and deliberate way, conscious of all the prevailing uncertainty and circumstances with us. I am confident that as Barbadians reflect now on what our track record has been in extraordinary circumstances, that as the Honourable Member for St. Peter says, whatever little you have, or how much you have, sir, investing in your future, investing in keeping this country stable, sir, is a good investment. And therefore, this government, with respect to our strong social and economic policy mandate, will continue to do that which we know we must do, sir, in a responsible way. And I know, sir, that people rest comfortably when the night comes, knowing in the sense that we have been forthright, we have been faithful to the trust that they placed in us twice, sir, completely. And to the extent that where there are institutional issues, rest assured that we shall resolve those issues. As you know, sir, over the course of the last few years, former members of this chamber have found themselves, sir, before the other arm of government in another jurisdiction. And I think the public understands, sir, that what we have been doing over the last 4 years really have been in their interest, sir. And I am absolutely confident that in spite of the questions being asked in terms of the Auditor General's report, sir, and as I said, we will give some specific responses to that, that within the context of this particular administration, sir, I am confident that that shall not repeat itself. And therefore, whilst I hate having to say it, we have to remind people, sir, that we came to office in very extraordinary circumstances. We have conducted ourselves, sir, above reproach. And the extent to which there are issues within the context of the Auditor General's report, sir, those are institutional issues which we have already committed ourselves to resolving. And therefore, I say that notwithstanding the current configuration of the chamber and what that portends, sir, for the PAC and all of that. But having said that, I'm sure we will find a reasonable solution to address that. But in spite of that particular hurdle, if you like, sir, at the moment, I believe the public can rest comfortably, reasonably comfortably, knowing that myself, the Honourable Prime Minister, and the rest of us here are conducting ourselves in the way that Barbadians ought to conduct themselves when the public has placed their trust in us to be able to be stewards, good stewards, sir, of the public purse, and that the decisions that we've taken, sir, have been decisions that are in the interest of the country. And I like how the Honourable Member for St. Peter said that this government has been responding to Barbados, and this government has been responding to Barbadians in the context of how we've been able to manage. And in short, in economic jargon, so you can't have the macro without the micro. And therefore, from our perspective, those two things must always meet in the middle, sir, because as good as things may look at the top, at the bottom, with respect to where things now have to be added up to get to the top, I am confident that we've done our utmost best to be able to bridge the two. And so, sir, with those few words, I will beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Question that the bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to take it in groups of 5. Clauses 1 to 5.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move that clauses 1 to 5 stand part.
The question is that clauses 1 to 5 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
In clauses 6 to 11.
Chair, I beg to move that clauses 6 to 11 stand part.
The question is that clauses 6 to 11 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Schedule. Schedule.
Chair, I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule of the bill.
The question is that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable members against, please. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees is reporting the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Barbados Optional Savings Bonds Plus offer to the Public Act 2022.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Order number 7, sir. In the name of the acting leader of the House, to move that the House resolve itself into standing finance committee to consider the grant of sums of money for the service of this island.
Honourable member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, it is.
Standing committee. Standing committee.
Sorry. Yeah, Mr. Beg to move that this House, that you do not leave the chair and that this House resolve itself into standing finance committee.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve into standing finance committee. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This House is now in standing finance committee.
Mr. Chairman, in the name of the Honourable acting leader of the House, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $7,166,181 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022 to 2023 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 1, 2022 to 2023, which form the schedule to the resolution. Head 15, Cabinet Office, in the amount of $7,166,181.
Mr. Chairman, we are still in the grip of a global pandemic. And I think that we've spent so much time, the boss bonds, we spoke about how we managed to make our way safely thus far through the pandemic. We talked about pandemic relief, pandemic response. We've put a large amount of resources into helping Barbadians to keep their head above water at this difficult time. But, Mr. Speaker, since we shut down Barbados and imposed a state of emergency in March of 2020, there have been those largely unsung heroes who have labored night and day in the most difficult of circumstances to help us weather this particular storm. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure we all remember when we came to the country and said that we can confirm that Barbados had had its first COVID case. There was such a panic that rippled through our society. And, you know, I well remember, Mr. Speaker, that every day my sister would call me and she would ask me, "You going to have a case?" And I would say to her, we had one, sometimes we had two. And then there were days, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 days when we had none. And every single COVID number that we registered in April and May and June of 2020 virtually caused our society to freeze because we felt that we were besieged by an illness and that we did not quite have the wherewithal to get through it. The byword on people's lips, Mr. Speaker, was PPE. We didn't have enough. In those early days, people were writing to offer to make masks. I remember the first mask I got, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, it lasted me for a few weeks. And now a face mask is so commonplace. Sometimes you put on 4 in a day because you don't remember where you put the other 3. But such was the level of anxiety in those early days, Mr. Speaker. When you people were going home, having served in the police service, or going home having served in the nursing profession, and leaving their clothes at the door because they were petrified of carrying the dreaded COVID into their households. Mr. Speaker, those frontline workers, those many thousands of Barbadians who faced difficult odds, working day to day with an illness that the world had not yet fully understood. Those people, sir, we owe a debt of gratitude. And the many public servants, the many service-minded individuals who work night and day as well to keep our country afloat during those difficult times, sir, we owe a debt of gratitude to them as well. Very often a country is only able to honor a few of its citizens. For many years we've had national honors, chaired by the Honourable Minister for St. Philip Less. And every year that committee will be called on to examine a few Barbadians and to bestow our highest honors on them. And in any given year, we probably might do 30, 40 people and recognize them for being outstanding Barbadians. But we are here today, Mr. Speaker, requesting a supplementary so that we can recognize not 2 or 3 or 4, but the many thousands of Barbadians who put their shoulders to the wheel to make sure that we could weather this storm. The country recollects that in April of this year, we hosted what we call the Humanitarian Awards. And on that occasion, we began the process of thanking Barbadians, thanking our frontline workers, thanking the people who labored against the odds for the service that they gave to country. And you know, when we began to talk about the numbers of people, it seemed almost fanciful. I mean, after all, you're accustomed to just awarding 2 or 3 people, 20 or 30. But when we tried to look at those individuals, many of them, their names will never be known, at least not to the average Barbadian. But their effort, Mr. Speaker, and the ripple effect of those efforts continue to be spent today. And so in April, we gave humanitarian awards to, I believe the number, I have the exact number somewhere, I believe it was about 6,000 plus individuals. But we knew, Mr. Speaker, that there were many others who deserved recognition as well. And that our exercise of thanking Barbadians could not begin and end with our April exercise. And we will shortly be having another ceremony to recognize another 6,000 or 7,000 Barbadians for being part of that fight. And this is not an afterthought, Mr. Speaker. It's not that they were left out. It's just that we simply couldn't do all at that time. For those who remember the biblical story of the 10 lepers, and one turned and came back to say thank you. I think that's something that parliamentarians know only too well. Because often we do so many things and we wonder really what is. Really what is. But today is not about us. We in Parliament today are the stand-in for that one who turned back and said thank you. Today we are here as the stand-in representing all of those Barbadians who received the acts of kindness, the acts of charity, who were able to sleep well at night because the police were on the job, despite fearful odds. Who were able to sleep well at night because the prison service was on the job, despite a serious breakout of COVID there. Prison officers still showing up for work day after day. And at that time, I think we had them on 18-hour shifts. Day on, day off. They were locked in. 2 weeks. Couldn't go home. Couldn't see their families. 2 weeks. To keep Barbadians safe. Who is thanking those individuals? Who is thanking the nurses? Who is thanking the journalists? Who is thanking the supermarket workers, Mr. Speaker, who had to be at work from early and leave late, couldn't deal with their own matters because there were lines outside their establishment with hundreds of Barbadians. Hundreds of Barbadians trying to get into need, to get the necessaries. Mr. Speaker, I know what we went through. We here know what we went through. And all of Barbados owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to those frontline workers. Now, there are some frontline workers who may not have been engaged from day one, but they still devoted much of their time and effort over an extended period of time to make sure, Mr. Chairman, that our country had a chance. They will largely be nameless, but we owe them a debt of gratitude. This country owes them a debt of gratitude. So when I talk about the lepers, Mr. Speaker, I repeat, somebody has to say to those selfless Barbadians who in the early stages were working in fear of their own lives, somebody has to say to them, thank you. The burden of expressing that gratitude rests on us. But equally, Mr. Speaker, the honor of expressing that gratitude rests on us. So why are we here? We are asking Parliament to vote the sum of $7,166,000, essentially to fulfill a commitment that our Honourable Prime Minister made on our behalf and on behalf of all of Barbados to these individuals who benefited from the humanitarian awards. We are here to carry out the promise that the Prime Minister on our behalf made to those individuals who are to benefit from the humanitarian awards. And if I can quote the excerpt from the Prime Minister's speech, the Prime Minister said, "Those who receive the Freedom of Barbados, the Honorary Freedom of Barbados, the Gold Medal of Achievement, the Humanitarian Medal, and the Humanitarian Pins, you all deserve it. But I believe that even beyond that, my government recognizes that even beyond the hazard allowance and the flexibility allowance and the overtime pay, that what we did was to have you anchor a country without a country descending into panic or fear. And for that, we shall forever be grateful. There is no amount of money that can ever represent our gratitude to you, but as we know, given how we were raised, it is always good to still have a token of appreciation to say thank you." The Prime Minister continued, "And it is against that backdrop that my government will therefore honor you further with a token of appreciation to each and every one of you in this ceremony, and in the second ceremony with a sum of $500 per person as a modest token to say thank you, thank you, thank you." We made that promise in April. This is an administration that delivers on its promises. The Prime Minister has said repeatedly that the country is not flush. It isn't. We have challenges. We have challenges. But I, for one, Mr. Speaker, am prepared to give up some small benefit. And I know that each of you in this chamber is prepared to give up some small benefit in our ministries, in our departments, to make sure that we have adequate funds allocated to be able to realize this promise from the Prime Minister made on behalf of a grateful nation. So, Mr. Speaker, that is what this is about. This $7 million plus is to enable us to give each of the awardees that ex gratia payment of $500 each. And naturally, the people who are receiving the humanitarian awards in the second set of awards, they too will receive that $500 each. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, that there's much more that need be said. This payment, it may not seem like a lot, but it is given to individuals from the bottom of our heart. We wish it could be more, but it is a token. And for those of you who will be saying, well, I'm a public servant, I work as a police officer, and when I get this $500 now, the tax man, and you start to imagine, no, there'll be no tax man. Because the Minister of Finance, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, has already signaled his intention to exempt this payment from any taxes whatsoever, pursuant to his powers under the duties, taxes, and other, I think it's called the Duties, Taxes, and Other Payments Exemption Act. And that has already been settled by Cabinet. It has already been determined, and before these payments are made, the appropriate order will be signed by the minister. So those of you who are in the public service who will start worrying, oh, this is not any money that you're getting by virtue of your work. It is money that you're getting by virtue of your sacrifice. It is money that you're getting for going above and beyond what your day-to-day responsibilities required you to do. It is an expression, a mere token, but an expression of the gratitude of a country. And for each of you who will be the beneficiary of this $500 gift, each of you, I can only ask that you determine for yourself that whatever you do in Barbados will be done with the same measure of commitment, the same measure of devotion and sacrifice that you exhibited during the worst of the COVID times. COVID is not yet gone from us. It may never go from us. We have to begin the discussion of how we transition away from the arrangements. You will know that bit by bit by bit, we have been relaxing some of the strictures because it is important to us that Barbados gets back to normal. But COVID will still be here. And I ask that the rest of Barbados takes from the example set by these distinguished, humble Bajans who received the humanitarian award, take from those individuals a spirit of commitment and devotion to our country. Mr. Speaker, it is not a lot of money. It is not a lot of money, but it is given, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, with the most profound gratitude that this Parliament could ever exhibit. I beg to move that head, which head is it? Head 15, stand part.
The question is that head 15 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that you do now report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one resolution in Standing Committee of Finance.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one money resolution in Standing Finance Committee. Honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Oh, sorry.
The chairman of the Standing Finance Committee has reported the passing of one money resolution in committee.
Speaker, I beg to move that this resolution be read a first time.
The question is that the aforementioned resolution be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move this resolution be read a second time.
The question is that the aforementioned resolution be read a second time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move this resolution be now agreed to.
The question is that the aforementioned resolution be now agreed to. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
Recommended, sir, of papers.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to lay the Barbados Fiscal Framework 2023-24 to 2025-2026.
Recommended of government notices.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to give notice of the resolution that the Barbados Fiscal Framework 2023-24 to 25-26 be debated in Parliament.
Revert to government business, sir.
Honourable Member St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, we've come to the end of today's sitting, and I therefore beg that we do now adjourn until the 13th of September. But speaking on the adjournment, Mr. Speaker, we've been at it pretty much constantly, 13th, since coming back to government. But the truth is, we've been at it pretty much constantly since May of 2018. Tradition used to have it that Parliament would have a long summer recess, which would be more or less coterminous with the school holiday. But in the musical Hamilton, George Washington is noted to have said, "Winning is easy, governing is harder." I don't want to suggest that winning our respective seats was a walk in the park. It wasn't. But I do want to acknowledge the fact, sir, that the day-to-day responsibility of government is such that a lot of those traditions, a lot of those conventions have had to take back seat to the awesome responsibility that we hold to take care of Barbados. But we've not done it alone, Mr. Speaker. For each of us, we've had the benefit of the support of Parliament staff who have been with us every step of the way. In fact, sir, they are the backbone of this legislative process. And then, of course, we have all of the other supporting mechanisms, Cabinet Office and its staff, the individuals who take care of our day-to-day needs, our caterers, the police officers who stand solidly on their duty to make sure that we are safe in this environment. We'll see them again in another 5 weeks, but I wish everyone, Mr. Speaker, respite. I don't say rest. I wish everyone a respite from these particular labors, and I want to thank all of them for their hard work. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your overabundant patience, and I promise you that when we resume having taken a short break, that we will not burden you overly after we resume. I'm making a promise on behalf of all of us. Mr. Speaker, therefore, thank you all for your service and your generosity of spirit.
I want to wish everyone a much needed rest and ask for you to come back re-energized and stay focused, because there's still a lot of work to be done. I think with God's blessing, we shall be able to come back here renewed, with renewed enthusiasm and vigor. I also want to commend the entire staff of Parliament and all the ancillary services for rendering to us the services that we do need in order to make this Parliament vital, important, and for the people of this country. I wish you all well. This House, the question is that this House be adjourned until the 13th day of September 2022 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 13th day of September 2022 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.
Phillips.